Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. I'm Karen McCarthy. In the program this week, a year on from the February 22nd earthquake, we remember the people of Canterbury and salute the efforts of the Farmy Army. The land grab, as we await the next turn in the Crayford farm sale saga, we ask, is the government out of step with public opinion? Did they get it horribly wrong? And water, how dirty is dirty? Quality standards. Have our regional councils gone too far, setting targets no farmer can realistically meet? Joining me in the studio is Roger Wilson, a managing partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers. He's been working with primary sector clients in the Waikato for more than 20 years. And Don Nicolson, a Southland farmer, a recent past president of Federated Farmers and a strong lobbyist for farmers in this country. He stood for the ACT Party in Clutha, Southland at the last election. You get a taste for politics being head of the Feds, I guess.
Well, I dare say it's supposedly an impartial body, but politics is all around us.
It'd be quite a training ground, I imagine, for politics.
Well, it can be. I mean, it's what you make it. It's like I said, we are an independent body. Politics is the field we're in, but you do have to remain impartial to party politics in Federated Farms. If you don't, membership will tell you.
It's an important independent voice for farmers in New Zealand. I mean, farming is a significant contributor to New Zealand. So it's an important body that farmers do have a voice and are able to express their views and get the communication out there.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk Canterbury. The nation marked the one-year anniversary of the February 22nd earthquake this week, a sombre time of remembrance. A time too to remember the Farmy Army, the band of rural volunteers who came from far and wide to lend a hand in their trucks, their diggers, their tractors, shifting liquefaction, handing out food parcels, whatever it took to help the quake victims of Christchurch. There's been a good deal of complaint and some criticism in recent months since the quake about the clean-up, the rebuild, insurance issues. Understandable given the devastation and the stress and the uncertainty. But you want us, Don, today to remember some of the heroes and helpers in the days and months after the quake.
Sure. Look, I wasn't in New Zealand when that quake happened, and I was heartened to see from the Northern Hemisphere that my team, led by John Hartnell and David Broom and the communications team and Feds, assisted by Carly and Shona Slews, really did mobilise a lot of people quickly. All those people, machines, food, you name it, along with the Student Army, along with Rural Women and many other entities, they mobilised and really did that clean up. And they've had to do it a few times since. And obviously, you can't keep doing it. But they've done their very best. And I think it brought that slight disconnection we have between urban and rural. It actually closed that disconnection for a while. Let's hope it remains a good place to be for all. I mean, effectively, I've been to Kobe in Japan, and I know the Christchurch people are feeling very, very concerned about their future. But if you go to Kobe, you've actually got hope. It didn't take long to repair Kobe. It won't take that long if Christchurch really wants to have a future and flourish. Once we get through this sort of impasse at the start, I think we will have a very fine city. And I should say the September earthquakes before, Murray Rowland led that massive clean-up of the grain silos, and that was a huge effort as well. So I was very proud of my team. And look, I just hope they aren't having to be mobilised all the time. Mm-hmm. Plus, on top of that, we had the Adverse Events Trust, and I think we, as chairman of it, I think we gave out around $350,000 to different registered charities.
Farmers and students, it must be said, get a lot of stick sometimes, but they both did really get stuck in, didn't they, in Christchurch's time of need?
The role of the Farmy Army about bringing that rural-urban divide closer together and actually connecting again, that's crucial. And moving forward, it's going to be even more crucial. As community develops, urban people have less and less connection to the land, and actions like that where people just unasked, basically, they just came in and helped without any questions, they shifted a lot of dirt. That's going to be great for the country and hopefully build that connection back up again. Because ultimately that's the biggest issue I think we've got, is this bigger divide between urban and rural communities. Generation ago, kids would go to their uncles and aunties' places on farms, whereas now those children today, they have no connection to the land. They don't go and have holidays on farms and things like that, so they don't understand what's happening.
Mm. Only 6% of New Zealanders live inside the farm gate, 14% in urban, rural urban. The rest of New Zealanders live, like 86% in cities and larger towns. So there is less opportunity for them to see rural New Zealand in action, and there's some good people around this country who do take school children out to their farms, do do education. Interestingly, it did get turned off in the 90s with the health and safety and employment stuff, and everyone was concerned about bringing children out to the farm. Well, hopefully we've got through that and we're moving on.
What's caused that that gulf, do you think, between city and country? You know, why is it that exists? How has that come about?
Society's moved forward in a lot of respects, but I think Fonterra, Federated Farmers are both having farm days now, field days, where people can go and have a look at farms and see a working farm in action. So what's caused it is basically as society's moved on and urban populations grow, they don't get out in the country as much. Parents are both working, so it's getting harder and harder for people to experience those situations.
The farmers getting stuck in there too, that I guess has fostered the spirit of community and of resilience that exists in rural New Zealand, has done for many years, maybe not so much in the cities.
Yeah, quite right, and long may that sort of ethos continue. I think New Zealanders have got a bit selfish in general, and it's great to see that in times of need, when you had to face the battle effectively, people came to the front, and just great for New Zealand to have that dynamic working again. And of course, you think about leading up to the World Cup after all this and how New Zealanders sort of rallied together again. It was a horrible year in some ways, but a huge contrast when we had the euphoria of winning a big event at the end of the year. So look, it's about evolution, it's about life, everything evolves, and we've just got to build from that, and I'm sure we will.
That community spirit's still evident in rural New Zealand now.
Sure.
I'm picking up hay, crutching, sharing.
Sure.
It's those sort of activities happen all the time in rural New Zealand still today. Rural schools get amazing support from the farming families, they're able to do that. Farming families are able to support schools, but that interaction is just standard in the rural communities, and it was good for the people of Christchurch to see that action just take place. Yeah.
You went down last year, didn't you?
Yeah.
What do you think is the future of Christchurch, realistically?
Well, it's going to be they need the ground to stop shaking, don't they? Once the ground, then there will be a rebuild, significant rebuild. It is the Republic of Canterbury, pretty resilient. So there will be a significant rebuild. It will just take a bit of time for that to happen. I guess my own concern is the next 12 months for a lot of families down there. The economic results are going to start hitting home. Insurance policies are starting to run out. So it's the next 12 months I think will be the biggest social cost. So it's still going to be a difficult period of time, but if we continue to support Canterbury, it's a significant economic area in New Zealand. We can't just walk away and ignore it. So there should be something fantastic come out of there. It'll just take some time, that's all.
And Don, is the Farming Army still mobilised? Is work ongoing?
Look, to be honest, I'm not sure, but I think John Hartnell would mobilise tomorrow if he saw it was an absolute need, a crisis. He would do it again tomorrow. I mean, it was tough on John, it was tough on his wife, because he had a farmlet that was shaking every day as well, and he was working long days. And look, he knows it just wasn't about him, but he deserved to be in the Local Heroes Award. He didn't win it, sadly, but he deserved all the accolades he got for being General John Hartnell, and we made him our Personality of the Year when my last day in Federated Farmers, actually. He's a great guy, and look, I can't speak highly enough of David Broom in the Communications Office of Wellington. The guy's a dynamo. He is wired 24/7, and he did a fantastic job, along with the twin sleuth sisters that I talked about before.
Well, we will be remembering Christchurch, not this week, but beyond. Thanks very much. Coming up after the break, the on-again, off-again Crayford Farm sale. As we watch and wait for the next turn in the saga, we ask, how did the Chinese deal ever get signed off? For a nation that's nailed its colours to the free trade mast, it remains a murky, muddy mess. Is the government out of step with public opinion? Stay with us, that's coming up. Welcome back to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. I'm Karen McCarthy, and with me, Don Nicholson and Roger Wilson. Let's talk the Crayford Farm sales thorny issue that it is. What are farmers telling you? Is there a land grab going on? Is there real concern out there?
Well, I don't get any or detect anything from farmers that there's a big issue here. I mean, farmers have willingly bought or sold farms for 170 years since colonisation effectively, and we're getting ourselves in a lather over the sale and purchase of something that's quite normal. When did it become someone else's business to get involved in the free enterprise trade that we've all enjoyed and we all enjoy in cities and in farms and in democracies around the world? So a fundamental tenet of the New Zealand Foundation is the ability to trade freehold title. Willing buyer, willing seller, doesn't matter about the price as far as I can see. So we've let ourselves build to this lather. 85% I'm told are against these sales now. To me, they've forgotten the fundamentals of New Zealand private property rights, and I find it absolutely abhorrent that we have.
It's interesting, isn't it? A lot of New Zealand companies are foreign owned, but land seems to be a special case, certainly in this case.
In this particular case, it's got so much water to go under the bridge yet. And we've got some court guidance now on what needs to be considered in the OIO approval. So I think there's so much that can yet change with this situation. So a lot of this is probably getting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit. You're right, there's a lot of foreign ownership of New Zealand businesses, and that's been great for New Zealand, and it continues to be great while we're not a nation of savers. So we're in a situation where we do need foreign investment, and it's a matter of picking and choosing which the assets are that we sell. And we tend to buy and sell and trade all of the assets. So I think there's a little bit of overreaction here.
You mentioned the opposition. It does seem public opinion is hardening. There was a 3 News poll out this week suggesting, I think, 3 out of 4 people are worried about land falling into foreigners' hands. And they were asked, did they want tighter laws to make it more difficult for overseas buyers to buy our land? And as you said, 76% said yes. Yeah,
and it's a bit disconcerting because the OIO does have a job to do by the statute, and it should do it to the hilt. But I'm suggesting that when private individuals can have a say over my ability to buy or sell land, or sell my land to whoever I like, I find that something that's a bit disappointing, because after all, the sanctity of the property right is what drives me. Maintaining authority or holding control over property is what I stood for when I was the president of Federated Farmers, and I'm finding if that is not going to be the fundamental that New Zealand continues to work on, then aren't we getting a little China like ourselves? Now, to me, you've got to set an example. I came up with the term reciprocity. Shouldn't be able to buy land here if they can't buy land in China. Well, when you think about that, that's not right either, because that is not setting an example to anyone. The openness of trade is what we've got to, and that's what free trade is all about, is trying to open it up. And the corridor for free trade needs to continue, whether it's land purchase, building purchases, whatever. I mean, we trade milk powder by the thousands of tonnes and we get foreign capital for it. We don't seem to resist that. Should we? Well, it's just silly, of course. We need foreign capital. And the killer fact that Dr. Brash gave to me before the election was New Zealand, at that point, New Zealanders collectively owed $140 billion to the world, more than we owned in election time last year. That's a pretty telling statistic. So New Zealanders telling us how to operate when they actually don't hold the checkbooks, quite wrong.
Roger, do you think the government should perhaps limit or set a percentage of land that can be sold to overseas owners?
You're interfering with private ownership. I don't think I don't feel that's probably an outcome. And we've got a defined process we need to work through, which has been led by Parliament. And once that, we've now got some common law judgment around that, some guidance from the courts. So that will work its way through, and we'll come up with a sensible and practical outcome. At the end of the day, that's what we need, is sensible and practical outcomes, because we do need foreign capital. We do need to increase our savings habits, and it's just a fact of New Zealand society. As Don says, we owe too much money internationally. We are part of a global player. The bigger issue is about increasing New Zealand's wealth and New Zealanders' wealth, and whatever it takes to achieve that outcome.
Some people have been very happy to play the race card in this, though, haven't they?
Oh, it's very easy to do it, and it's very easy to get traction when you do that. I just find people that play that sort of short on facts and don't understand that New Zealanders are gorged on consumption, we've gorged on debt, and we've gorged on expansive government. And that's one of the big problems why we're not saving in this country, is government is ballooning out of all proportion in terms relatively relative to the size of our economy. So we've done all those things, and then we're trying to say we're going to shut the door on foreign capital. I don't think so.
You mentioned before about private property rights, birth rights to sell your land to whoever you want. I think maybe the issue here with the Crayford land is it's the government is seen as flogging off the land to the Chinese. That seems to be what's got people's backs up. And you know, how will John Key dig himself out of this one? He warned years ago of the risk of New Zealanders becoming tenants in their own country. Surely there's no better example of that than this, and it's his ministers who rubber stamp the deal.
Well, he should make sure he pulls the size of his government back, makes New Zealanders take control of their destiny a bit more. Remember, our forefathers went to war to fight for free enterprise and freedoms and liberty. I don't want to see New Zealand close the doors after we've just tried to get through all that last 50 years. And so, John Key is an issue, and it's about telling New Zealand the truth about themselves, and we're not telling the New Zealanders generally the truth about themselves.
This is a minefield for the government now, is it not?
And under MMP politics, sorry, Roger.
No, you go for it. Yeah.
MMP politics is seriously flawed. When you have these hard calls to make, MMP causes a whole lot of problems.
The government now, you'd think after rubber stamping the sale to the Chinese, and now that the judiciary has intervened, temporarily blocking the sale, whatever the OIO comes back with, whenever that decision comes, this has proved so hugely unpopular. The government seems to be damned if they do, damned if they don't now, whatever those ministers decide. It doesn't seem to have been handled very smartly at all.
The OIO have only delayed the decision. They've said to reconsider some of the criteria. So it's, and that's just the guidance that as law takes course, you start to get guidance from the courts on other factors that need to be considered. So they've provided some more guidance on some factors that need to be considered. So I don't know that the decision's been rubber stamped. I mean, it's been a torturous process to get to where it got to, and now they're just working through clarifying some further points based on the court guidance. So I don't take the rubber stamp approach. I think it's been a very thorough process, probably tortuous, but we'll get the right outcome.
What do you think other potential foreign investors will be thinking, sitting back and looking at what's been unfolding?
Well, if this sale doesn't go ahead now after all the discussion we've had, and the government does put up a stop sign, no, can't go any further, capital flight will happen out of this country, and our interest rates guarantee will go up. All sorts of things will happen. We cannot give signals like that. And people want to invest in New Zealand. We're a good place to invest. We obviously want to expand our society. We need money. It's just as simple as that. And New Zealanders, luckily, are starting to save a bit more themselves, but we're a long way behind the 8 ball. And those freedoms that I talk about are fundamental in this society. And God help the government if they ever try to trample on them some more.
Those factors that the court have told the OIO to review, they apply to all applications. So it's not just this one application, it's every other application for OIO approval. So, I mean, it's impacted, there's commentary on the James Cameron purchase in Wairarapa. I mean, it impacts on those sort of decisions as well. So,
but the Chinese have really been put through the mill, haven't they? There's all sorts of conditions attached.
And you'd expect that as a result of that, there are going to be conditions attached to other applications as well. So this is just providing some clarity to the OIO on how they complete their job, and for all applications. So I think we should. The fact that there's Crayford here is one factor, but it actually applies to every other foreign investment in New Zealand ultimately. So it's an important process that we get right, and will impact New Zealand's investment ability and capital flight.
Don, is this deal then, even if it's to the Chinese, in New Zealand's best economic interests?
Well, look, I'm sure that it'll be in the economic interests of someone. When I trade goods and services, I try to make the best economic interest as well. And, the Chinese aren't going to be silly. They're not going to want to lose money. So it's in their interest, surely. Everyone that wants to invest wants something in their interest. It's a fundamental. Just let's not lose the fundamentals here. And I'll worry we're going to.
Next, we ask our guests to share or vent what's been on their minds. Will it be a rant or a rave? More Straight Talk in a moment. Welcome back to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Time now for our guests to get anything off their chests. Will they opt for a rant or a rave? Don, I know water as a bugbear of yours?
Yeah, well, look, I made it my challenge for this year to this Federated Farmers Southland that I would find out some information about the guidelines and standards for water in New Zealand. And I found that, yes, we do have some guidelines. They're Australian, New Zealand guidelines, but they seem to be applied differentially around the country. And it seems that even in one regional council's case, you had a set of guidelines on one page that were different to a set of guidelines on another page. What I'm suggesting to you is that I think our standards have been put in regional plans because the layman didn't know what levels they were looking at. They are light years ahead of where any logic and reason could make them get to. And so we've got perhaps unattainable targets, and it's then very easy for regional councils and the Ministry for the Environment to say that we're not meeting our water standard targets. I think we've got to go back and have some integrity in this discussion and get back to what really did happen, because I know with all the improvements in water, point source discharges and things like that, we are massively enhancing our water quality in many instances, and I've heard many scientists say the same thing. It's just that the noise coming out of the green fringe is quite different. And of course we have many people with self-interest, as I've found, in councils, in government and in NGOs. So look, we've got to break all that up, otherwise this is going to destroy us. We're eating ourselves up on water quality, and we need to get some honesty around it and some integrity.
Dirty daring,
it's a hell of a slogan.
It is. It's a shocking slogan, and it's a time for cool heads. Farmers want to improve the land. They don't want to create dirty water, environmental issues like that. So generally, most farmers, and whether it be 95, 99%, whatever the number is, are extremely concerned about water quality. And water is going to be our great big golden bucket. It's our oil. So farmers are extremely conscious of the environment. It is a matter of everybody having cool heads and working through a process. It's taken decades to get to this position where it is at. And let's be fair, I mean, not all waterways are great, and we need to improve them. But you've got to engage across the broad spectrum of stakeholders and get agreed outcomes and get progress. We can't just take a slogan of dirty dairying and saying we need to fix it, because there's all these other implications and other industries, other communities that are all contributing to this.
Are you saying it's too easy to put farmers in the gun over pollution, over water contamination? I mean, many people genuinely believe farming, land-based primary production, is the villain in the piece when it comes to the quality of New Zealand's freshwater resource.
It's very easy to make sensational headlines. It's very easy to make them. It's very hard to justify them. And in fact, some instances you can, obviously, where you see silliness happening with perhaps an effluent hose that's going into a stream. That's just dumb. No one needs to do that. But I'm aware in my instance, in my local area, that we were told that a lake of national importance, a freshwater lake, was under extreme risk of flipping, was the term. Well, it's my information now that the water quality in that lake has not altered negatively in 10 years. So the headline was sensational, and they caused all sorts of property right damage in that area because you couldn't sell farms after that headline. They're trying to shut that catchment down a bit. I reckon they've taken $100 million of equity out of that catchment last year, and I think those disparaging comments without the ability to defend them are very damaging. And to be fair, Fish and Game came up with that dirty dairying campaign. Didn't need Saatchi and Saatchi, didn't need anyone. It was just 2 words, and it was, to me, I call that economic treason. It's unacceptable that we allow that to permeate through our minds. And
it will take decades to turn those water quality issues around. We can't just turn them around just like that.
The RMA gave good things and bad things, and the sad thing that I see in the RMA actually was that we never had laymen like me able to interrogate the information that we were getting in terms of standards early enough.
Last words, we've got a couple of minutes. Is there anything else you want to get off your chests?
I just want to rave about provincial New Zealand in the next 6 months of the economic spending that's going to come through from farmers, basically. Dairy checks, beef checks, wool checks, lamb checks are all going to start hitting bank accounts, and maintenance and development will go on farms that's been postponed for a few years. So I think it's going to be a good 6 months for provincial New Zealand, and it's about time. It's
about time, all right. I mean, the retooling of the landscape has happened with this major dairy expansion in many provinces, but even now the sheep and beef farmers are able to retool, as I call it. You know, they haven't been able to for some time, and it's good news. So long may that continue. Of course, the thing that I would like to also bring up is my local government hobby horse. I see many councils around the country talking about these significant rate increases, and I just think it's time the Minister of Local Government, Nick Smith, actually became very interested in why local government can do this every year. It's got an expansion mentality and it just can't keep doing this. And they talk about amalgamations. There's a fundamental wrong with amalgamations, and I suggested to Rodney Hyde that it was wrong in Auckland. You have to get funding policy right before you do amalgamations, and I hope Minister Smith listens to that advice.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's it for this week's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Thank you to my guests, Roger Wilson and Don Nicholson, and to you at home too for joining us. I'm Karen McCarthy. Hope to see you again next week for more Straight Talk.